Brenna, we're live.
We're live. Welcome, Bryce. Thank you. So this is actually you're my first Facebook Live with a guest. Normally I have these pre-recorded. And so to everybody, this is Bryce McKinley. He's a coach, has real estate background. I'll let him tell you a little bit of his story, but he's also my new friend who's helped me a little bit with Zoom because I am completely, as I've said before, illiterate. But hi, Bryce. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. You know, it's fun, right? Like I've got a group called Leading Through Change, Brenna, on Facebook, and this is what we do. Like we learn how to manage new situations, and as entrepreneurs, you know, we're very similar to like AI, artificial intelligence. And we had some technical difficulties, but what happens with AI, right? Like it hits a wall, it pivots, collects the data, and shifts and moves forward, right? So
yes,
it's been fun being a new friend, like being able to already add value. Like that's what this is about. So I'm honored to be on your show today. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm honored to have you. And that's, I think I'm really glad that we are doing this interview. Bryce had reached out to me through my social media. As we know, a lot of us, we brand ourselves, we share who we are. And I wear my heart on my sleeve. And he said, hey, I've got a story. And I'm thinking, I get hit up by a lot of people to interview, and I hear them and there's stuff, but I really want people who've just come out on the other side of things. And they're like doing things for other people. And you have that energy and you've already helped me and given me value. So thank you. And I know you have a lot to share with everybody who's going to be listening, because I was blown away when you started telling me your story. So why don't you introduce like a little bit of what you do now currently in your business, and then we'll back it up to your story. So what are you up to these days? What are you doing? Introduce yourself.
What am I doing? I love that question. What am I not doing sometimes is what I think. But before I do go into that, Colton Crottinger is a good friend of mine, and he says, two of my favorite people. Do you know that guy?
No.
Oh, well, you're one of his favorite people now. You should definitely know Colton. So
okay.
He's watching. Justine, Mario, Spencer, I see you guys. Make sure you guys share this out. Give us some hearts. Let us know where you're watching from, because I'm about to share my story with Brenna and her audience, and you don't want to miss this, because I know right now going through tough times creates tough people. And wow, that gives me the goosebumps thinking about it. And so somebody needs to hear this story, because somebody else is experiencing something that they need to overcome. And that's what Brenna's all about. She's all about sharing the stories of others that have overcome obstacles and tragedies and things like that. So with that said, Mike, thanks for joining us. Make sure you guys share this out. Like it, love it, hate it. I don't care. Just don't do nothing. In the meantime, thank you, Brenna, for doing this interview. I appreciate you. And yeah, you're right. I loved your energy. I just knew that there was something there, whether it was we collab together and help you with your podcast, or maybe because we're both in real estate, maybe we can exchange some value and do deals together. But I just loved your energy. And so I appreciate you for allowing me to step into your circle and share my story. So the question is, what am I doing? So I have been a Fortune 500 business consultant up until about 7 years ago. I've worked with Ford, Nissan, Tyco, Toyota, Honda, ADT, the Pentagon, and my primary focus has always been as a business consultant to come in and restructure, reevaluate how businesses manage their sales teams and systems and operations around their sales processes. But more recently, I've taken those skills in the last 6.5, 7 years, and I've applied those skills into real estate, specifically in the investment world in wholesaling. And so I know you being an agent, a lot of agents have this like bad stigma. I don't know how you feel about it, but I hope that by the end of this interview, the agents that watch this that are in your circle have a different opinion, because wholesaling, in my opinion, is like being the superhero, the last final resort. And if we do it right with ethics and values and just intentions, we get to change people's lives. And so that's what I'm currently doing. I wholesale, I coach wholesaling, And I also am an international speaker. I've been on stages with Les Brown and Tony Robbins and E.T. Dr. Eric Thomas this October. I'm going to be on stage with him again. I'm excited. So between being a speaker, a coach, a mentor, that is all great. But that's just a vehicle. That's a vehicle that really fuels my passion, and I'm just a servant. And so you can Google or search Coach Sharpen. If you notice, I'm wearing a backwards hat, you guys. Like, for me, it's like iron sharpens iron, so does one another to as mankind, right?
Oh, I just had somebody I just interviewed, that's his favorite quote from the Bible, and he quoted that.
Yeah, so for me, it's twofold. That's like my second favorite. My first one is Ephesians 6:11, the body armor of Christ. Like, we better put it on us and just know that we're safe, we're loved, and we're protected. But back to this Coach Sharpen thing. For me, the way that I teach and the way that I instruct and the way that I lead is very simple. I'm not Harvard educated. Hell, I barely graduated high school. And we're going to get into that. So you're going to definitely want to stick around. So make sure you guys share that out. But for me, Sharpen is an acronym. And Sharpen stands for selflessly helping already persons eager for nurturing. And if I can serve like I've never been hurt, and all I do is serve from a place of love and abundance, the world is at our fingertips, and so is it for you. So that's who I am, and that's what I do. We've got a homeless ministry here in Dallas, where last year, the year before last, my son, who was in here before we got started, he's hashtag the middle school millionaire. He raised over $12 million for the homeless youth here in Dallas, all by himself.
Amazing.
And so that's what our passion is. That's our mission. But what I do to fuel that mission really is real estate coaching, mentoring, and personal development.
Love that. I love that. Now, you've obviously been successful at this, and I love that you've talked about all these people that you were on stage with, and you're on my little series right now. So thank you. I love seeing what God can do. And I think at the end of the day, oh God, for me, I have my own roads and journeys I've been on, but being a servant was kind of something that I didn't realize how much of a calling that was on my own life. How did you, and it kind of came into, well, that's what I want to do. I want to help people in the ways that I can, in ways that my energy and my physical body will let me. How did you know that your purpose was to start serving? What triggered there? Because I know you didn't, we usually don't come out and say, I'm going to serve the world right now. When did that happen for you?
It's interesting. I'll start at that point because I believe that the man upstairs has everything in abundance prepared for us as long as we're willing to accept it, right? Like, the free gift of abundance is what he's already promised us, whether that's love, financial, personal, all of those things. And you said what triggered that. And that's exactly what it was. It was that little box right there on my shelf on my office desk here is the case for a .40 caliber pistol. And September 28, 2011, that pistol, it's never jammed before, it never has jammed since, but September 28, 2011, it jammed 3 times in my mouth. So when you say what triggered it, it was the fact that that gun jammed 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Oh,
and I knew that there was something outside of my little human body, and I had a greater purpose, right? Like my good friend Les Brown says, you have greatness inside of you. Like, I knew that resonated. And so when that gun jammed, I was mad at the world and mad at God, and I'm sure we'll get into why. But I knew when that gun jammed that I had a purpose. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I got mad at God. I gave him an ultimatum, and I said, show up. And I'll never forget, my son at the time was just a baby, not speaking at that point. He's 9 now, so you do the math. He was like a little over 1. He said, he was right at 1 year old. He said, Daddy, everything's going to be okay. Now, I don't know about you, but not many 1-year-olds speak.
And give such prophetic advice at 1.
Yeah. I believe to this day, I hear the voice of God. You can call me nuts, you can call me crazy, but if Moses and Adam and Elijah, if they all heard that, I know that I can too. So for me, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And I know that Jesus Christ is my Savior, and he and his Father are one, and that he spoke through the voice of my son in the back seat, who, by the way, when I turned around and freaked out, was sound asleep. I knew that it was the voice of God, and I knew that I would never be the same. But I haven't always been that person.
Yeah. So that was the lack of trigger was what triggered this new experience in life. Who were you? I mean, growing up, I always go back to, give a little synopsis, a little bit of your childhood. Parents?
Yeah.
Family?
So my dad is a minister now, and I grew up in a very strict religious house, a religion-based house. And I have called it in the past like a very cult-like experience, because I thought I was going to hell if I so much as looked at a TV when I was a child. And I knew a lot of people watching this had been hurt by the church, right? That's how I felt. I was so mad at God. Like, at the age of 10, I'll never forget, my parents started having problems, and everything that I knew about God went right out the window. I was a kid. I think, what was I, in like fourth grade? I was in fourth grade. My parents are going through a divorce. I'm no longer going to church 8 to 10 times a week. Like, what is this chaos? And I wanted nothing to do with the God that I thought that I knew. And at that point in my life, I started showing off and acting out. And in the next year and a half to 2 years, I would start joining gangs and selling drugs at 11, 12, 13 years old, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And so as a child and teen and even a young adult, I was not a great person. I mean, I've got a rap sheet from here to, Alaska and back. Not proud of that. Fortunately, by the grace of God, no felony convictions, because I wouldn't have had the opportunities later in life. And that's another confirmation and why I know that God had been working through my entire situation, right? Like, he brought me to it, he'll bring me through it. But I didn't know that back then. So yeah, as a teen, I was really troubled and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I don't know who's watching, but if you've got kids, just listen to them and stop lecturing them, because that was probably the deciding factor, because I didn't want anything to do with my parents, because I got lectured all my life. I didn't have the greatest relationship with them at the time, and I just acted out. I rebelled tremendously, and I was facing some pretty hefty criminal charges. Let's just say, Brenna, I probably shouldn't be sitting here today. And by the grace of God, those charges were acquitted, and I had an opportunity to get into the corporate world. My uncle helped me out, got me into a car dealership, and it really started turning my life around. So fast forward now, I'm 18 years old. I'm detailing cars. I'm working at like this little ad agency, like boiler room style calling sales, and I'm still doing some dope on the side, but I wasn't like hanging out with the same crowd. It was more just me having fun in my own little world. And I was doing all right. But I seen all the flashy money and the flashy cars from all the guys at the dealership, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And Celia, you said it right. Start building trust and respect between you and your kids. Start communicating and stop yelling. I love that. If you guys don't know Celia Kibler, she's got an amazing parenting course and good friend of mine and a mastermind that I'm in. Thank you for that, Celia. So make sure you guys that are watching this on Facebook right now, share this out. We're going to be helping Brenna with her podcast and this interview by doing so. So thank you guys for being a part of this. So here's the deal. So I begged my uncle for a greater opportunity. I said, you see, I'm doing right. Let me have a chance. I want to sell cars. Like, I can do that. If I can hustle dope and like running in and out of the inner city of Chicago, like dope and guns and just dumb stuff, I can do this. And I'll never forget, it was a cold, snowy afternoon in December, and nobody in Northern Illinois or Iowa at the time where I was. Like, nobody's out looking for cars in a snowstorm, right? Well, he said, if you could sell a car today, I'll put you on the sales team. And so I buckled down, grabbed a phone book. Yeah, we had phone books back in the day, right? Back in the 90s. I grabbed a phone book and I just started calling. And wouldn't you know, a guy answered the phone and says, matter of fact, I got the day off and I need to get an oil change. I'll come in and see you and get my oil change on my truck a little sooner. He comes in and we went out and did some test drives while he was getting his car serviced. And by the end of the day, I sold him and his wife a vehicle and another friend of theirs that he called in for a referral bonus that I had sold him on. And so my first day in the automotive industry, I sold 3 cars. I was hooked because come Friday, I knew I was making about like 10 grand or 9 or 10 grand on those 3 cars. Like, this was going to be amazing. I was going to kill this. Fast forward about 1.5 to 2 years, I break just about every sales record in the automotive industry. Most car guys do, even to this day, you know, about 10 to 11 cars a month. Back then, I was averaging about 40 to 50 cars a month. I don't know the exact number because it's been so long. And I was reached out to by Ford Motor Company for what they have is, it's called a national walk-around competition. You go through like regional, sectionals, and then you go to nationals, and it's like 500,000 applicants across the country graded by your peers. So nobody's ever been there more than 2 times, and nobody's ever won it more than once. I've been there 4 times, I've won it twice, and I've got second place twice. It was an amazing experience. And at that point, Ford Motor Company's like, who is this kid and why is he not helping our struggling dealers? And so this was probably 2004, 2003, somewhere in there. I'm, 20, 23, 22, somewhere in that age range. And I got recruited out of my dealership. I started traveling all over the country, teaching dealerships how to sell better. And unfortunately, this, what would be my wife, her and her husband had a son, and like, it was crazy. We had a really interesting relationship, right? Like, I didn't have the same beliefs that I had today, but we lost this boy. And she had been drinking pretty heavily because of it. And to put it into perspective, her mom was my Sunday school teacher growing up. So we'd known each other all of our lives.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, she was in and out of the hospital facing, they called it the banana bag. I don't know what the legal or doctor term is, like getting her vitamins basically and getting sober for a week or so. I'll never forget, it was June and she's like, this is it, I'm going to do this. And she went in and we actually ended up like making love on Friday or Thursday, June 12th. I'll never forget. And I'm like, let's do this. Like, we were Bonnie and Clyde. Like, we were going to take over the world. She was super successful running a daycare and a salon, and she had some businesses, and we were making millions of dollars. We were doing pretty well, but she was battling this depression and anxiety. And I'll never forget, the next day I went into the office. I was working with the dealership in Clinton, Iowa at the time that I had a contract with, and this other like sales call center that I had a contract with, and doing some consulting work. And I'll never forget, I was in the middle of the sales floor with about 300 salespeople, and I got a phone call from my mom, and she said, Kristen took her life. And it was just so surreal because she just couldn't do it anymore. It was Friday, June 13th, 2008. And I had thought that I was doing the right thing, but I was not a great husband because I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the great examples. All I knew how to do was what my dad did, which was work. And so I worked and I wasn't there for her. And she ended up taking her life and just had complete renal failure. She passed. And between Friday, June 13th, 2008 and March of 2010, I would go to lose millions of dollars, 5 companies to cocaine and alcohol. And I moved up to Wisconsin to just get away. You know, I used to vacation up there, got a cabin up there. And I met this crazy Italian girl, and she was great. We were like Bonnie and Clyde all over again. But we found out in March that, thank you, Celia, I appreciate that. We found out in March that we were going to have a baby. I'm like, this is it. I got to get my stuff together. And so come November 2010, our son was born, and she had a lot of difficulties. He had some difficulties, you know, he's since has been diagnosed. He's on the spectrum. And it was just an awakening. And I'm like, man, I built multi-million-dollar companies before. I can do this again. And I got my hat on right, my head on straight, and I went to work. But I invested in myself. So you guys watch it, invest in coaches, invest in mentors, and follow those that you want to be like, and just trust the process. And I've got some parenting and relationship tips too, if you want to hear them, Brenna. We can talk about that. But I'll never forget, we moved to Dallas in early 2011, and I'm sobered up, and I realized I came home one day and she hadn't sobered up, and we started having some issues. She was having one of her family members send her pills and abusing prescriptions and things like that, and we were having some issues. But we were going to work through them for the sake of our son, and she had 2 boys, and I love those guys, right? And I'll never forget, I came home after a long week. I came home early on a Friday, and she's passed out on the bed, and there's pills everywhere. And there's my little guy on the floor just like rolling around. I'm like, Fudge, not in those words. I'm like, Fudge, why? Like, why again? Mm-hmm. And I did what every gangster does, right? Like the old gangster in me kicked in. I picked up my boy, I went and packed a bag, and then I put him back down in the mess and took some pictures. And I went to a hotel, and that weekend I stayed at a hotel just praying and not knowing what was going to happen. And Monday morning, I'd file for custody of my son, and that would be the biggest fight and challenge of my life.
Yeah. The most important.
Yeah.
So she was okay. She made it.
She did. Yes, she's doing really well now. I'm really proud of her. It took several years because after that battle that she lost, she kind of checked out of reality for a little while, but she's an amazing human. I have nothing bad to say about her. She just, you know, I talk about, I've been master certified trainer in NLP for years, neuro-linguistic programming. And one of the things that we talk about in NLP is the map is not the territory. Like Brenna, you could come to Dallas and I could give you a map to my house and you could find it, but you'd never know the hills and valleys that you're going to go through to get here. You're never going to know the overpass, right? So the map is not the territory. So although we're going through this struggle, I had already been through it before. So I had a different interpretation of the map and I knew how to navigate it. So I would encourage anybody that's going through some things, like just know that your map is not the territory and somebody else is on the other side waiting for you and they need you. And if you don't shine your light, somebody's getting lost in the darkness. And so all that to say, I would get custody of my son and dealing with that. I lost the last couple $100,000 that I had to my name while I was building this business back up. Damn it, Brenda, I said I wasn't gonna cry. I haven't told this story in a while. And the last couple $100,000 that I had left over from my little safety net was over. I couldn't go back to my house because of the protective order that we had, you know, and going through the case and all of this stuff. And so I ended up getting sole custody of my son, losing a really big contract with ADT. And I'm stuck, like, not in the hotel on the company account, sleeping in my car for the next year.
Let me stop you right there, right there. So at this point, what year is this?
So this is late 2011. So early 2011, all that happened. And this is like September 2011 when I pulled the trigger. I'm sleeping in my car. I'd been in the car for about 9 months.
So, because in a matter of a couple years, because this is a lot for people to take in, but I really want people to put this in perspective. In a matter of a couple years, fell in love, had a great love, with two knucklehead kids, doing their things their own way. Lost her. How old was she?
So she was my first wife, you mean? So that was 2008. She was 5 years older than me. So she would have been like 32, I believe.
So 32. So she lost her at the age of 32. You had built up millions of dollars, lost everything. Found somebody else, fell in love, had a baby, some challenges with the autism, coming home with her dysfunction and dealing with her traumas and her addictions, and lost everything again to fight for your son. So built it up again to lose it again. And now you're living in your car, looking back. There's different ways people are going to look at it. And I want people to open their minds and their hearts when you hear this story. And as a parent, I know we do everything for our kids. When you had your son in your car, a lot of people say, wouldn't you take him to family? Why wouldn't you have him somewhere else? I mean, what were you going through at that time in the fight where especially when you come to the point, and I understand, because I understand depression and I understand people's minds when they're fighting for everything, but you're in the car and then where you're just, ready to take your life. I mean, what was that like for you? Explain the mindset. Get into more of the details of that.
I love that question. That's a great question. So for me, I had always been that person like, suicide is stupid. Like I was that person. And even 30 minutes pulling the trigger, I was in a great mood. I had just talked to my brother and couldn't put my son with the family because all of my family was up in Northern Illinois and I'm in Dallas. I had no family here and I just kind of felt overwhelmed. I felt pressure and I knew the hustle and drive that I had.
Right. I'm losing you.
Hello.
Our connection. I don't know if it's just my side or your side, but I'm losing you real quick.
We should be good now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Hopefully
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. It's better. I just don't see you.
I can hear you. All right. I can see you. Here we go. Hello. Brenna? So I'm going to keep going. Hopefully the connection is better, you guys. If you're showing some likes, show me some love. Let me know that you guys can still hear and see me. I'm not sure what's going on. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. And so at the end of the day, to answer Brenna's question, how did I feel? I felt overwhelmed. I felt like there was no tomorrow. And just 30 minutes prior, I had been, having a conversation with my brother. I'll never forget that. So.
There we go.
Anna, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can see you. I can see you and I can hear you now.
Okay, I can hear you.
Thank you guys
so
for
we can
sticking
still
around.
have a conversation.
Yeah. So Brenna's question was, how did I feel in that moment? And how I felt was just overwhelmed. Like my mentality leading up to how I was feeling was, I'm a hustler. I can do this again. Like I've got something to live for, and just kept pushing. I kept striving to be better. I kept pushing forward, and I kept, asking questions, and it just got better and better. And I hit this wall. Is that better, Brenna? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you and visuals coming back, so we'll just keep going.
Okay. So in that moment, I leading up to that, the mentality that as I was going through this experience was just taking it one day at a time. I was putting in job applications. Like it didn't matter what it took. I was going to do whatever it took to take care of my son. And we went to food pantries and I had clothes. I had nice clothes because I had, packed a whole bunch of stuff in my car, and I didn't think it would be as long as it was. And so I had, went shopping and so forth. But it was like this brief moment where I was just overwhelmed. And literally, I wrote my son a letter. I wrote my mom a letter. And I just said I couldn't do it no more. I was done.
Right. You okay?
And so, yeah, I'm not sure. It may be Zoom just because it's Thursday afternoon. I'm not sure. I've got a strong signal on my end. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, I would just say that, when there's a shadow in your life, the only thing between you and the light at the end of the tunnel, or the light on the other side of that, is the obstacle. And so when you start looking around that and figuring out how you can navigate through a different map and reach out and not be afraid to ask for help, that was kind of the deciding factor, because I just laid everything out. I started selling people on the idea, like, look at what I've done. You want to be here when I get there. Look, I've been uberly blessed. My mission right now, personally, financially, is to be able to live off of 10% and give 90% away. Reverse tithing. So, when there's a shadow in your life, there's always light casting the shadow on the other side of the obstacle. So keep pushing, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to reach out.
I love that. I love that, how you said that. When there's a shadow in your life, there's always light. Push casting that shadow. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. So now you also talked about, so you had that epiphany. You tried 3 times to shoot yourself, gun in your mouth, and the gun, it didn't work. It jammed. So okay, God's doing something. Where was the transformation then? Where did you say, okay, like, what did you take? What did you decide the next day, okay, like, this is going to be different? What steps did you take from that?
Yeah, so I got mad. I'll be honest. I got mad at God. I was just like, I call God my bro because he's kind of gangster like that. I was like, God, if you're half of what you say you are and anything like they say you are, show up. I'll never forget. Show up. And boy, did he ever, because I heard that audible voice. I heard that voice again a second time that night. And between him speaking through my son and saying, Daddy, everything's going to be okay, I heard him say, bro, I got you. And I'll never forget, like, wrestling with God spiritually and mentally. and I don't remember going to sleep, but I remember waking up, and I remember just this overwhelming peace, this overwhelming like comfort, and be like, okay, he's here. He's got this. Let's go. And I went to the library, and I was actually on a computer looking for jobs, and I got a phone call, and it was my bank. They had some fraudulent activity on my account. They needed to talk to me. I'm like, oh God, what's going on now? I've got $32 in my bank account. I've got some cash in my pocket. Like, what's going on now?
Right.
Come on, God, you said you were here. I said, take care of this, man. Just take care of this. And the Bible says that he stands at the door and knocks, and whosoever opens, he'll come in and be with you. And whatsoever you ask, you will receive. And I leaned on that, and I'm asking, and I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, I need this right now. Like, what's going on? And I'll never forget, I walked in the bank. Oh, Mr. McKinley, come over here. And they sat me down. And they said, we just need to verify some transactions. And they started going through the last 3 transactions to verify that I was who I was. Mm-hmm. And they're like, who is such and such incorporated? I was like, oh, that's an old client of mine. Like, what's wrong? Well, they made a deposit yesterday that cleared in the amount of $20,000. Like, what? I called them up, and they're like, yeah, we found an old invoice. Go ahead and just accept funds. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, come on, dude. You knew this all along. Like, come on, what was the purpose? So then I started asking more questions. Like, what was the purpose of this?
Yeah.
And the bank said that because of the fraudulent activity, they had to put me on this like stipend, so I could only take out $2,000 a month for the next 10 months. They said 12 months, but now I had an allowance. I had $2,000 a month for the next 10 months. I'm like, I can do this. $2,000, shoot, I can live off of that. Let's go, bro. Let's go. I went to the library. I redid my resume. I'm an international speaker, business consultant. If you don't know, now you know what time it is. So for all of you that are watching, that's where you know what time it is comes from. Like, you know what time it is. And I put that on my resume, and I shortened it down to 1 page, and I sent it out, and I started getting targeted by ads on YouTube as I'm like watching videos for real estate. And I heard about wholesaling real estate. And so I'm watching these videos, and I get another phone call. This is the same day. This is less than 24 hours. This is on, I believe, a Saturday. I don't remember what day it was. It was whatever September 29th is. Like, I'm at the library in the morning. Like, I'm on fire. I just left the bank, so it was early afternoon probably. And I get a phone call from this apartment complex, and they're like, hey, we found an old application, and we've got a couple of rooms or a couple of units available. Just wondering if you're still in the market. I'm like, come on, bro. Come on, bro. No money, no deposit, first month's rent free. So now I got $2,000 to do whatever the heck I want, and no bills because of this old apartment. So I moved in this 1-bedroom apartment in McKinney, Texas, and you're going to love the ending of this because it's so surreal and confirmed by God. But literally right down the road from where I live now, and I'll tell you about the difference and why this location is so important. But I moved into this 1-bedroom apartment. I went and bought a TV. I had a milk crate that we had in my car. Me and my boy would sit on like milk crates and hang out outside the car and eat on the seats like we had a table. And so we put the TV on the milk crates, and we slept on the floor for about a week while I gathered stuff to supply my apartment, buying stuff and trading stuff online, which is a whole nother reason why I do marketing and garage sale groups for real estate. So if you want to know more, ask me about that. So I'm like buying and selling and trading stuff in these garage sale groups. And I found wholesaling real estate. Like, I've been watching these videos, and all of a sudden it just clicked. And I started making phone calls, and as a realtor, like, What do most people in real estate, whether you're on the investment or the retail side, like you do 1 or 2 transactions a month, if not every 3 months, and for most agents, right? As you work another gig. I did 23 transactions my first month in real estate.
That's amazing. That's great.
And it was all uphill / downhill from there. So
that is awesome. That is amazing. I love that. You kind of mentioned to me before, that is awesome, being hold on to be able to come back from that. You talked about your son as well, and kind of his difficulties. I wanted to, because of my passion for chronic illness. I have 2, and those struggles and people not understanding, and he is on the spectrum. He's autistic. Talk a little bit about he's inspiring too. So tell a little bit about his challenges and what he's done, because he's kind of an amazing little guy as well.
Yeah, he's awesome. Cranston is my son's name. He's 9. He'll be 10 this year. He was considered to have autism and or Asperger's. They never finalized any diagnosis because he started having some miraculous healings. Like I prayed over him 2 or 3 times a day. And someone that's on the spectrum, like they need discipline. And I think that's what really helped me get through it, because we were so consistent with our routines. Like even to this day, we don't deviate. Like Brenna, you've seen him come in here like, hey, I've got coding at this time, like what am I doing next, right? He's looking for that direction. But that discipline that I put in place as I was learning to be a better dad, because I've got a daughter that's 22, I don't have a great relationship with even to this day. I love her to death, but it was better back in my old days that I wasn't a part of her life, because I didn't want her involved in that chaos as a teenager. And so her mom has done an amazing job with her. But that discipline that I had to put in place for him is probably what carried us through. And he loves people. And I would say he was about 4 years old, and I was praying over him, and he was not supposed to speak. Like he spoke, but he was just like gurgled and like grumble. Like it was hard to understand him. And even to this day, people think that he has like a British accent, because it's not like crystal clear like how you and I speak, but he sounds like he has an accent. And I'll never forget it. Like 4 years old, he's like, Daddy, I love you. Just plain as day. And I'm like, come on, bro. What's up? Like, and I said, bro, talking to God, because that's who I call my God, right? Because God's kind of gangster. If you didn't hear that when it was all choppy. But like, I'm like, come on, bro. And I gave him like this handshake, and we do this handshake and we do this. And that's us showing love for us, showing love for God, and then showing love for the world. And then let's go. That's our handshake. And we did our handshake. And I'll never forget, he started wanting to get involved. He started helping me like do things around the house that he never wanted to do before. He started just opening up, and I seen the love that he had for people. He just loves people. He's probably the kindest soul I've ever seen. Like, he's just a gentle giant. Like, he's the size of most 15-year-olds, but he's 9, So, yeah, that's my boy. I love that little guy.
Aw, and you said you call him the what is it? The kid millionaire? What is his little?
The middle school millionaire. So yeah, 2 years ago, I reunited with an old friend of mine, Matt Maddox, like international speaker, author, coach to the stars, like just an amazing human. And he and I like grew up in the same like cult like religion way back when. We reunited a few years ago, and we'd always kind of like just like I'd always followed him, and we did things, whatever, like spiritually I felt like we were always connected. And it was about maybe 3 years ago or so, like we reunited and went to a mastermind with him. And, between sitting in the room with him and Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson, like just these amazing millionaires and billionaires, my son's like, I want to do this. Like, I want to help kids. I'm like, let's go. So he partnered with Caleb Maddox, who is like multi-millionaire, 18-year-old. He just turned 18 a few months ago, multi-millionaire kid. And he joined his Apex for Kids coaching program. And Cranston kind of built out his own thing. And so Cranston has raised millions of dollars for non-for-profits here in the Dallas area. So we call him the middle school millionaire. So you can Google hashtag the middle school millionaire. He coaches kids on sales and confidence and things like that. And they play Fortnite together and have little coaching sessions on Fortnite. It's really cool, the little kids mastermind that he put together. So
I love this. I just want to emphasize, this is your son who is autistic, who's never supposed to speak, who spoke to you, at the worst time in your life, said his first little sentence as a 1-year-old, What were those words again? I'm missing.
Daddy, everything's going to be okay.
Daddy, at 1 year old, this boy's not supposed to talk, and he's able to say, Daddy, everything's going to be okay. And then comes out later. And now he's speaking. He's a speaker, and he goes out and
yeah, he just did a 5,000 person student athlete event in Chicago last year. I'm like, it was amazing. He crushed it. He helps me dress sometimes because he's cooler than I am. Matching jean jackets and like skinny jeans and cool like high top boots. I'm like, all right, bro. Like, yeah. So my little guy is a stud. He's a stud. I love it. We're going to the lake later today to hang out and jet ski. So like we do everything together.
I love that. So you brought up something and it keeps repeating itself. So I figure this is because something keeps showing itself to me. This is something I think I definitely want to address it with you. It's my own journey. And I think I look at it a lot in my culture. The way our culture is. I just commented something today, but the law of God versus the grace of God, and I've been through, I've been, Catholic, I've been to Baptist churches, I've been to Pentecostal, and then I've walked away and kept my own relationship with God and my own faith. And through it all, yes, I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And I believe God is within all of us. I believe that you talk about the armor of God, on your arm. And I had to learn, I used to think, oh yeah, we think of swords and shields and God revealed to me this summer, no, the armor of God is the love of God. That's your armor. Yeah. When you love yourself, when you're healed, when you realize the God within you, that's your armor. Because once you realize that we all have that in us and everybody else does, things can't really hurt us. We stop seeing people as their trauma and we start seeing them as God. We can see the God in everybody. But talk about from your background, what is religion versus faith to you? What is God's grace versus the law and to you? What does it mean to you?
That's interesting. So for me, just if I were to summarize things in one word, the difference between being and doing is religion. So we are human beings, and most of us are just doing. Right? Like we are in this human body. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so what people need to understand is just like Adam and Eve in the garden, like God just wants a relationship. That's why we were created. The only reason there's evil in the world is because he had to tell them, like he had to give them options and give them free will. And when they made the choice, they knew that the consequences were pain and suffering and disease and illness. And so you have the opportunity. The difference between God and religion is a relationship. It's being versus doing. Any religion out there, it doesn't matter if it's a Christian faith or if it's a Protestant faith or it's a Catholic faith or it's a Muslim or Islam, like, well, that's kind of the same, right? Like all of this, they're all doing. They're all trying to be righteous before him. And me and my family, we were sitting down last night and it's crazy because I had this like revelation last night. Like my God, he's a fun God, dude. Like his first miracle on this earth as a human was he turned water into wine. Like they had a celebration. My God parties. He's a freaking rock star. He's gangster. Like he cussed some people out in the temples and he's like, you mother effers, look at what you're doing to my Father's house. Like he's a human. He's spiritual, he's human, he's everything. And so for me, the difference between God and religion is the relationship. You can go to church 1,000,000 times and not know my God.
Yeah. Yes.
I was Pentecostal as a child, very strict Pentecostal, like the way other end, right? I'll tell you this. For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We want to have abundance. We want to do this and we want to do that, right? But God says, I mean, heck, I just wrote it down because one of my mentors said this. Like, what is the first thing that God said to humankind? First thing he commanded us to do. He gave us a chance. We failed. He gives us a second chance and he kicks mankind out of the Garden of Eden and he says, be fruitful. Like, be fruitful. Show what he's done for you. And then multiply, reinvest. Like the farmer doesn't go and plant and get a reward right away. He waits and then has a harvest in the fall. Do you think that he doesn't save some of that? Absolutely. So he saves on his yield, right? And then he replants and then he has a bigger field and he replants and has a bigger field. Multiply. And then he said, create. God said, create. Go and create. You can create whatever you want. He breathed his life into us, and with the same breath, he created. And then he said to reign and dominion over the earth. Dominate. Be the best at whatever you're being. Be the best. Be fruitful. Multiply, create, and dominate. That's the God that I have. That's the God that I serve. That's the relationship that I have. So the difference between God and religion is a relationship. He's a party animal. He's gangster. He's soft. He's kind. He's loving. Like he feels your pain, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to start preaching, lady.
Oh, preach. Preach. I love it. I could sit and talk about faith all day and love and yeah, my own experience. My own, but I think that's what we have to do. I think I think growing up in that law, you're told what people want you, they want you to fit in a certain box. And I think when you get out of the box, it's like, no, we all have our individual journeys. Nobody's journey is like anybody else. So nobody can say what to do. You have to just find it within yourself and then take it from there. And that's what we're supposed to do. Not to shame the word. We share the word, we share the love. Not to go around and shaming people because they don't do it just the way we're supposed to do it on our journey. So, yeah.
It's really simple, right? Like it's really simple. We live in two different perspectives at all times. We're either one, being reactionary, or two, being intentional. I mean, think about our service workers right now, like not just in the hospital, but think about like our produce stock person right now. Like they're working overtime to make sure that we have food and supplies and trying to be safe, but running into millions of people, thousands of people, hundreds of people every day, right? Yeah. And let's say that you're out there and your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or whomever, your roommate says, hey, Brenna, do me a favor. Will you go run and get some Ritz crackers and some milk? What do we all do? Yeah, absolutely. First thing we do is go straight to the back of the aisle. We know where the milk is, but where the hell is the Ritz crackers? We never know, right? Like they're in the 4th, 5th, or 7th aisle, and when they're doing inventory, it's over in the pharmacy department, right? Well, guess what? You walked right past little Sally and Johnny that's stocking apples that said, hey, welcome to Kroger. Can I help you find anything? They're like, no, I'm good, thank you. You reacted. You put your subconscious in front of others, and now 100 times or 1,000 times a day, that person gets told, you're not worthy. You're not worthy. You're just a stock person in their head, and that's the root of depression. It's the belief in other people's imposed perspectives.
Yeah.
So when we can start being intentional and say, Sally, that's your name, right? Sally? Man, you're crushing it right there with the apples. I know I got to get milk. It's in the back of the aisle. But I'm curious, where's the Ritz crackers today, right? Like, you could just do that one thing. Just imagine that one seed. You might just change the world by being intentional with that person.
Yes, being present and making connection with those that are put right in front of us. Making just that little
Everything
connection.
that you do has to start with being. You heard that, guys, that you're watching, right? Brenda said, being present. Present is your doing, but being is there. So,
yeah. I love that. Okay, so I know you have a big day with your son. He wants to go to the lake, and you got to stay on schedule. So thank you for doing this. I do want to start wrapping it up. So I have some kind of questions that I ask everybody at the end of my interviews.
Yeah.
Most inspirational person to you in your life? Who's influenced you the most?
Before I answer that, you guys are still watching. Thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties. Do me a favor, like this, give us some hearts if you're loving what you're hearing, and share and invite someone, tag somebody in this live stream, because somebody needs to hear this today. The most inspirational person in my life, next to my son, it would have to be Jesus. Right? Like, I studied the history of the Roman Empire, and to see and watch how he was intentionally and voluntarily put himself through a massacre of trained professional assassins, and he could have given up. He could have been like, no, I'm not the God and Savior, right? Like, yes. He did that intentionally. And then at the cross, right as he was getting shoved the spear in his side, which is documented not just in the Bible, but in Roman history, folks, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was a Passover and they wanted to be done with it, and they wanted to go about their rituals, right? They pierced his side. He said, "Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do." Yes. He still loved even when he was hurt.
Yes.
As if he had never been hurt before. So the most inspirational person next to my son, because that dude's pretty freaking rock star, like, he's part of God, right, in a human little experience, I would say Jesus Christ, because he's a gangster. Like, he's been through it. He's been through it.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I have to just do another little note on this summer when I was going through some things in a church, and I've heard that story my whole life. We hear, raised, but it stood out to me in a certain way. And it was Peter, I think he told, when he knew what was coming, and he asked Peter after he betrayed him, and he said, he asked him to do him a favor. He said, "Look after my sheep." He said, so he knew what was coming, and he's still asking, "Look after all these people who are going to betray me." And then again at the cross, like you said, "Forgive them, Father, for what they knew." So that's love. That's amazing to be that, yeah, I love that. But yeah, that hit me this summer. What do you have to say? So we have suicide in common. I had my mother who killed herself when I was 11, and you've had to deal with depression. I have family who's attempted and dealt with it and succeeded, and I've gone through my own. I've never been depressed, I don't think, but I've certainly gone through moments of hopelessness in life with things going on. For who's watching right now, who feels, the person that feels desperate, the person that feels like it's not going to get better, what do you have to say to them?
For the person that's feeling desperate right now, and the person that is just kind of at their wits' end, I want to encourage you to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because at the end of the day, we are all one. Like, this body is just an experience. Like, one day when we all die, we're going to have this spiritual connection, and we're all going to be together, whether, you believe my faith or you believe something else. We're going to have that opportunity. And if your beliefs are in, your maker and your creator and God, and I call him Jesus, right? Because that's our human putting a name around it, because he said, like, they just don't get it. Like, I need to lower myself to uplift myself, right? Like, just keep pushing. Like, you don't have to believe the same things that I do. You don't have to believe the same things that I'm going to do right now, but just keep pushing, keep asking questions, and ask questions not about your situation, but about what your situation would look like if you were to overcome it right now. Because here's the thing, if you can see what it looks like on the other side, it's easier to get there. Remember, the map is not the territory. And so if you get a roadmap because somebody else has given you experience, knowledge, and wisdom, you can navigate your circumstance a little bit better. And so although it may not come to you as quick as you want it, ask questions about what that desired reality looks like and how to get there. And you then have a better version of your map to overcome the valley that you're in.
I like that. And this is a fun one, but it always stumps everybody for whatever reason.
Let's go.
All right, a movie, Bryce McKinley, movie about your life. It's going to be featured. What is the theme song to the movie of Bryce McKinley?
One Shot by Eminem.
I love it.
I'm not even like, because of how I was raised,
Yes.
like I don't know stats. I don't know names of songs. I don't even think that's the actual name of the song.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like Eminem.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like that's it.
Do not miss your chance to, blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is it. We get one experience as a human. One experience. You got one shot. Like, don't throw it away. Don't sit back every night after you get home from work and just flip on the TV. Like, read a book, watch like a documentary, listen to a podcast, follow the people that you want to be like, and start implementing how they're doing it, and start being what you desire.
Yes.
You only have one shot.
Yes. I love it. Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end it. I'm so happy. I'm so happy you reached out. And I'm happy you did this interview. And I'm happy we met. I got my new friend.
Yeah.
Bryce from Dallas. Hey, so thank you so much for today, and enjoy your time at the lake.
Hey, my pleasure, Brenda. I appreciate you. I'm curious, just so that my audience, since we're co-streaming this right now, and my audience, like, how does my audience get in contact with you? If they want to follow you on Instagram or Facebook or a business page, like, if you're in Colorado and you need a realtor, like, get over and talk to Brenna Rosales. I mean, goodness, she's amazing.
Oh, thank you. So I got rid of my Brenna business page. I just keep everything on my personal page. So if it's Brenna Rosales, look me up on Facebook. I'm there. Instagram, I show more of my hobbies. I do more, don't do a lot of DMing there, but I'm Brenna's Becoming on Instagram. And I also have a Brenna's Becoming page on Facebook where I share my journey and my health story. And I share stories like this with Bryce. Overcomer series is what I do. And I love interviewing people who've overcome obstacles. So yeah, so if you're wanting to follow along with more amazing stories like this, go to Brenna's Becoming on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to sell your house or buy a house in Colorado or need a realtor in another state, then I can help you with that too. So Brenna Rosales.
Boom, you guys heard it from the host herself. And for your audience, do you mind if I share a little bit about how they can reach out to me if they need to?
No, welcome. And I just want to say too, I just started a new YouTube channel. I forget about that. Brenna's Overcomers on YouTube. Yeah. How do we reach you, Bryce?
Brenna's Overcomers on YouTube. Make sure you go give this lady a follow. Like, she's a world changer, and she might not know it yet, or maybe she does, but she's amazing, y'all. I love her energy, and that's why I reached out to her. I don't do that very often. And so make sure you guys are following Brenna. In the meantime, if you are a Brenna's audience and you're listening to this, my name is Bryce, B-R-Y-C-E. The only reason I'm cool is because 60% of my name is Ice. A little old lady told me that one time. I'll never forget that. It's really corny, but it makes me smile every time. Last name's McKinley, M-C-K-I-N-L-E-Y. So Bryce like the canyon, McKinley like the president or the mountain, a national monument around here, right? But you can find my business page on Facebook at Bryce McKinley or at Coach Sharpen on Instagram. And yeah, stick around, because between my friends and I, we're changing the world, and you definitely want to be a part of that. So if you're ever interested in learning about real estate investing and how I did it with no money out of pocket, like, I have the REI Results Academy, and you can contact me through reiresultsacademy.com, and I can show you how I did it with no money and built, $100 million organization. So, and I've got a brokerage too. So Brenna, if you want to ever come join our team, I'd love to have you. We're going to be opening offices out in Denver area probably in the next year to 2 years, but I'm always—
Hit me up when you're there. I'll go up to Denver.
If you're willing to come over to our brokerage, we'll open up sooner rather than later because we have
I'll
a proven process.
I'm loving EXP. I gotta say, I love this whole company, but I will visit. I'll say hi.
I didn't know that's who you're with. I've got a lot of friends in EXP. So you and I need to connect after this about something else than to help your business because I'm all about network marketing. I've got like 5 network marketing companies myself. So
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So, all right, yeah, so that's it, guys. Hey, Brenna, anything else that they need to know about you or that your audience should know about me?
Oh, me as a whole another we need another hour to do it. No, you, I think he's wonderful. You've all got to see his energy. Meet Bryce, go follow him. And thank you for watching.
Boom. Love you guys. God bless you. Stay sharp, and we will see you at the top. Boom. All right, so the recording is